Guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the TED Show. Sabrina is with us today, Sabrina Trobak, and she has to be one of the most patient individuals on the planet because we have been trying to schedule this, and my schedule has been insane. And so I want to thank her publicly for being so patient and resilient when it came to that. She is going to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I think a lot of people struggle with this. As a matter of fact, I know they do. Not good enough, understanding your core beliefs or belief and anxiety, because I think we are all suffer with that at some point in time. Welcome, Sabrina. How you doing today?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we were able to make it work for sure.
We did it, and thank you again, because wow, that was some crazy times. All right. So let's talk about you. Give the audience a little bit of background on you, your point A to point B, and then we'll take a deep dive into the topic.
Sure. So I am in northern British Columbia, Canada, in Fort St. John. I was a teacher for over 20 years, working mainly as a learning assistant teacher, but basically taught in all three school divisions. And towards the end of my career, I started as a school counselor. And I went to a workshop on suicide presented by a man named Tony Martins. And at the end of the 3-day workshop, I just thought, this is what I need to do. So he was looking at suicide from that perspective of that core belief, feeling not good enough. So Tony and I went back and forth for about a year, and he finally agreed to take me under his wing and teach me his model of therapy. So I quit teaching and started my own private practice, which was about 15 years ago in 2010. And within 6 months, I have had a waiting list. Because we're actually going back and challenging and changing core beliefs, my clients are with me for a good period of time, usually about a year or more. So I go through my waiting list really slowly, and I hate having to turn people away. So I decided to write a book to provide a resource for people who can't access counseling for whatever reason. And so that's how Not Good Enough, Understanding Your Core Belief and Anxiety came to fruition.
I love it. I love that. We talked before we went live. I feel like so many people are hurting with that. I feel like we all struggle with it, but some more than others. So talk about the concept of not good enough. That can mean so many different things to so many different people.
Right. And I think it is important to realize that it is a varying degree. So, there's some people who, often feel good enough, but sometimes they feel not good enough. And then it goes all the way to people who really generally feel not good enough the vast majority of the time, and maybe get little peaks every once in a while of feeling good enough. So it's just kind of that driving force, that driving force, or that voice in your head that just kind of takes everything that happens to us and interprets it into that core belief, feeling not good enough, not important, or not valued.
And I feel like as a whole, most people have experienced it. So what are some of the tools to get to begin to deal with it? Because if this is how you were raised, core belief, right? You somewhere along the way, that feeling became the majority of the way you felt, or at least it became a big part of how you felt. How do you go back and fix years and years of being conditioned to not feel good enough to the point where you're feeling better, or at least feeling enough?
I think the very first step you have to do is become more aware of how significant that core belief actually is. For a lot of my clients, when I first start with them, they say, "Oh, yeah, you're speaking to the choir," but I never realized that's what was going on for me. Because we're constantly trying to prove to ourselves that our core belief is true. So I'm going to be drawn to people, places, experiences that reinforce and support that core belief. So I need to get a much better understanding of what that core belief actually is. Then I have to consciously really start to challenge it and say, is that really true? Am I really not good enough? Or is that just that core belief kind of tricking me into believing something that I've always believed my whole life?
I talk about it on the show a lot. I'm a childhood domestic violence survivor and abuse survivor. And so that was ingrained into our brains as children for whatever reason, blessing, my brother went one way with it and I went the other way with it. And I'm very thankful that I had that, but I got into college, years of counseling and really talking through that. But I feel like the reason you wrote the book, you said, is because a lot of people don't have access to therapy. Therapy for me was literally life changing because of that. How do we correct our behaviors? Because a lot of times it's a repeat. My brother repeated. I did not. So
Right.
my brother repeated it in his life, and I did not with my children. And I feel like that was such a blessing. But a lot of people don't have that. They continue the path because it's the only way that they know. And so that's how they were treated. So they're going to treat other people like that. It's a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our brain is full of, a bunch of pathways. And every time we practice a behavior, that pathway gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. And so it gets easier and easier and easier to just hop on it and go. So whenever we're doing something new, we really are going right back to the beginning, and we have to create a brand new pathway. That's a lot of work. It's hard. It takes a real amount of conscious effort to step off of that freeway that just goes and create and build a new pathway. And so for a lot of people, if you don't even realize you're on the freeway, you're not going to get off. Once you start to become aware of it, then you can start to challenge yourself and step off of it. But it has to be a real conscious effort. It's not something that just happens. If you're just kind of going with what just happens, the chances that you end up repeating those cycles becomes really, really, really significant.
And I feel like a lot of people might get on the right path, but they're still surrounded by the people who helped build that core belief. How do you, family, I'm thinking, of course, off the top of my head, you stay in that circle, you stay in that toxicity, mainly because they're your family. And a lot of times they're not supportive of you getting on a new path because, God forbid, they'd have to admit that anything that they did is wrong. That was my experience. How do people overcome that? If you're still in the environment, how can they focus? What can they do? What kind of tools can they have in their tool belt?
All right. So we kind of call that the crab in the bucket syndrome. So if you're out crabbing and you've got a bunch of crabs in the bucket and one crab starts to pull out, the other crabs will grab it and pull it back in. Yes. Right? If we're all in misery, we're all the same. No one looks different. Someone steps out of that. Now it not only highlights that someone is doing well, but it also highlights everyone who isn't. So it can be a really, really challenging dynamic to break, especially because, bottom line, you can't change anyone else. The only one you can change is you. So, logical answer is, well, put boundaries in place. Put boundaries around how much time you spend with your family, how you, how much, even if you are together, instead of being for an hour, you're there for 15 minutes, or you're going to a public place for a coffee where things don't get as volatile. All those kind of things can be really helpful. But if my core belief is not good enough, I'm not going to believe in myself that I have a voice. I'm not going to believe in myself that I have a right to a voice. So I'm going to really struggle with even just putting boundaries in place. So it becomes really, really challenging. What I see is often people try to put boundaries in place, but they put them around the other people. You can't say that to me anymore. Well, you have no control over it. They can say whatever they want to say. You have to decide, when you say these things, I will remove myself from the situation, or whatever it might be. So it really has to come back to focusing on you and how you are going to choose to handle those scenarios. And again, core belief, not good enough. I'm not going to trust in myself in making decisions. So we often go from one extreme to the other. So I need to just kind of give in and let my family do whatever they want, or I have to cut them totally out of my life and never have anything to do with them. The more that core belief is good enough, the more you can get to that middle ground where you can navigate that family, have connections with them, but it's around what feels comfortable and safe for you. You're navigating it rather than just giving in or absolutely walking away.
You're still the captain of the ship. I worked in the substance abuse arena for many years. I have my master's degree in a related field, and the recidivism rate of substance abuse, people who were going through treatment, was so high because they went back into the same neighborhoods, the same family dynamic. And it was always about building the boundaries around them instead of them having the strong enough or the changed or the adjusted core belief. And so the recidivism rate was in the high 90s for that. And I think it still is. It's just very hard in that. I went through therapy, and I worked and navigated and did set boundaries. At some point, the boundaries got pushed so far and so hard that I had to cut. And it was still, even though I had all of that negative, why were they like that with me kind of scenario, there was still that weird little guilt. Like it's strange to separate from your parents, which is what I did as an adult. I think what helped me most was having my own children and realizing there was absolutely no way that anything like that was going to be around them. But I did try to navigate through it for a little while. But I feel like people don't have that skill set. So that's why your book or therapy or a combination of all of that is so critical.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, a big thing with a lot of the treatment programs is they're teaching coping strategies to help you cope with it. But we really need to get much deeper to why is it there in the first place. When we look at a lot of drugs and alcohol, the main thing they do is they just shut the brain off. We don't have to think, we don't have to feel. And so if we're not really sorting through and dealing with all that emotion and that core belief underneath it, the chances that unhealthy coping strategy, whether it's alcohol, drugs, pornography, gambling, shopping, whatever it is likely going to come back or switch. We see in Canada, the success rate again is maybe 3 to 5% that actually stop drinking. But of that 3 to 5%, a huge majority of them go to gambling or anger. So it just switches from one to another. So we need to really get to the core at what's really causing that. Alcohol isn't the problem. It's a symptom of something else. Drugs isn't the problem. It's the symptom of something else. The better we get at being able to feel our emotions and sort through them, now I don't need an unhealthy coping strategy to suppress them.
Yes.
But if we grow up with a lot of chaos, we didn't learn how to feel even if we grew up in a really healthy home, there's not a lot of talk, especially my generation, around what emotions are. We're getting better. We're talking about it more in the schools, but to suppress emotion is far, far, far more the norm, for sure.
Yeah, you develop a skill of suppressing.
Absolutely.
I developed as a child. I had to develop certain skills that I still use to today, and sometimes they rear their ugly heads, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge because as we forget how fragile children are, and even though they're resilient but it's a lifelong battle when you have been in that influx. What's it like when somebody graduates? You said they're with you for a long time, and graduate's my word, but I'm just thinking of celebratory. What's it like for them? What's the point? And I know it's different for each person, but how do you know? Is it some sort of life change they've made? Is it the way they're speaking to you? What are some of the keys, and how exciting that must be too?
There again, because this takes time. There's a slow change that happens, really starting within a few weeks of coming, where they get a better understanding of anxiety and what their anxiety looks like and how their core belief is being triggered. Once I know, then I can start to do something a bit about it. Our end goal is contentment. You just feel calm and content. You feel like, if my core belief is good enough, then no matter what comes up, I think, say a year and a half, but they're 45 years old. Well, that's only 1/45th of their life, right? So the chances they slip back into their old ways of doing things is really high. So we do a maintenance program as well, where clients come, once every couple months, then once every 6 months. And so we're slowly pulling back where they're getting more and more in practice of staying in that place where they're at. Because life is busy. And so the chances that we end up slipping back into our old ways of doing things is extremely, extremely high. So we got to keep focused on really enforcing those changes and making those conscious effort to to stay in those changes.
I love it. Tell me about how people can find the book.
Sure. So I have my website, trobakholistic.org, but the book is also available on Amazon in Canada and the US, kind of pretty much all the Amazons. It's available. My website, it has a lot of information on there as well. It's got my social media links. I do have a YouTube channel that talks about little pieces of information. I have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as well. And all those links are on my website as well.
I love it. All right. So it's scrolling across the bottom, trobakholistic.org. I always like to ask one personal question. I'm a big believer that people influence you. They make an impact on your life. When I say the word hero to you, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Oh, my dad.
Tell me why.
Definitely. My dad is patient, kind, non-judgmental, believes in giving back to the community. I'm 56 years old, and there's never been a day in my life that I didn't feel loved by him.
Oh, I love to hear that. What a blessing that
is. It
is.
is, for sure. Yeah.
What a blessing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for coming on. All of you, I know, because I have talked to most of you who have reached out to me over the years, where we have felt it. And if it is a consistent feeling for you, therapy, amazing. Get Sabrina's book. You can find it at trobakholistic.org, or you can also go on Amazon. Not Good Enough, Understanding Your Core Belief and Anxiety. And I want you to get it. I can obviously put you in touch with Sabrina. Her links are all below. What a blessing to have you on, Sabrina. I love this topic. Come back anytime, because we're all still going through it, I feel like. We're all works in progress. And if we can convince more people that is other people are there, they're not alone in how they're feeling, that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
You were awesome. And thanks again for your patience. All right, patience. All right, you guys, we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.